we're back. Welcome to the Chemist Confessions podcast. I'm Victoria.
And I'm Gloria.
And this is a human conversation on all of the skincare science we talk about daily.
On the regular.
And today's episode, we are doing a Meatz podcast where we're going to summarize our 30 for 30 sunscreen challenge findings, because we've gone through a lot of sunscreens in a very short amount of time.
And we have a lot of feels that we have to share with you.
So many feels. But first, let's go through a couple of nice words.
Yep. The first one is for the experiment kit. These are our set of minis that you can use to try a chemist routine.
People are liking them, Gloria.
I'm really happy. It's so cute.
Yeah.
Entitled is Great Introduction. I was curious to try this new to me brand, and this little chemistry set was perfect. I am sold. I have already purchased the full-size bottles of Aquafix and Blank Slate Cleanser. My next purchase will be Mr. Reliable Moisturizer. These approachable products are gentle on my sensitive skin and have a nice subtle fragrance. I will recommend this kit to anyone who is wondering what the hype is all about.
Hype. Sorry.
I actually look forward to washing my face at night, whereas before I could not be bothered.
Aww.
Reading your book has encouraged this routine as well. Thank you.
Yeah,
I love this review. That is so
amazing.
sweet. Yeah, I'm really glad the kit works for you. We were working on this for so long because we knew that minis and just like a little introduction was nice, and we didn't know, like, basically we were working on the packaging for a really long time. But I'm glad it all worked out.
Yeah, I mean, skincare is an experiment always. A lot of times you just won't know till you trial.
Mm-hmm.
So we always love hearing that people can find even just one or two that could be helpful to their routine.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. And the second nice words is about our Blank Slate Gel Cleanser. And we are focusing on the Blank Slate because in our 30 for 30, we use Blank Slate majority of the time as our wash-off test. The title is Extremely Effective but Non-Stripping Cleanser. This person writes, I have tested hundreds of products but struggled to find a cleanser that removes sunscreen and makeup completely but without stripping the skin or being too foamy. This is the perfect gel with a light lather, and after cleansing, I do not need to do a double cleanse.
Yes.
Everything has already been removed, including eye makeup, my new go-to cleanser.
Yes.
I think that's everything we wanted, right?
Yeah, that's literally summed up our thought process when we were even conceptualizing this cleanser. Sick.
Yeah. So we've definitely, when we created Blank Slate, we want to make sure that it can remove sunscreen, but also daily makeup. We will be honest and say that if you are using long wear eyeliner or those crazy lipsticks that have like 24-hour wear, anything like that, you're probably going to need an actual makeup remover.
Yep.
But other than that, we're so glad that she can use this as her staple.
Awesome.
Yay!
Last but not least, we have one for the specialist. The title is Gentle Yet Effective. I love using only one drop mixed into my other serum and seeing how effective it is. I've never been able to tolerate another acid step this way. I can tolerate this one. Short and sweet, and I love this one because I really want to highlight that the specialist is kind of a special product in our acid lineup.
Is special.
It's
Sorry.
very special.
I couldn't help myself.
But yeah, it has 18% mandelic acid, 2% salicylic acid, and 5% niacinamide. Thank you. Thank you, Victoria.
I got you.
It's compared to the Gold Standard and Baby Steps, the other two products in our lineup, it's a little milder, and it's mild enough to be used as a leave-on spot treatment. That's why we call it the specialist, to kind of help nip congestion in the bud. We get a lot of questions about like, oh, I have oily acneic skin. Is this the best for me? And sometimes we'll still say it kind of depends on your acid tolerance, right? This is mild enough for most people to be used as a leave-on spot treat. But in this person's case, a one drop mix into the serum where it's diluted down seems to be the perfect level for her. So again, it's still your acid tolerance and how you use an acid booster should still depend on your skin type. We have also gotten feedback from certain oily acneic skin individuals that they have to go all the way up to a gold standard and then they see the benefits of AHA. So that's why we created this line, so you can find your AHA true love.
Yeah, awesome. And so for our podcast listeners, as a thank you, please use our new promo code ChemistCoin to get $5 off your first order. Yeah, we really hope you enjoy just trialing some of our babies that we formulated, and hopefully can find a way to just dial and really own the routine that you create. So, all right.
Let's get into the meat.
All right. So, in the meats. All right, Gloria, tell us what was our challenge.
The meat of this episode is what we dedicated most of May to, which is a bunch of sunscreen tests.
Mm-hmm.
We call it our 30 for 30. It kind of went on for a little longer than 30 days, but
it's just a lot of sunscreen.
It was a lot.
I think Gloria and I had to give the device back and forth, and then it kept dying on us. And anyways.
Yep. So we wanted to, honestly, I feel like as we did the test, it kind of evolved with what we're doing. At first, the original idea is we want to test these sunscreens across different categories. We want to test how it wears, how it reapplies, and also how the blank slate works by washing it all off. And I will say, when we first started, we probably didn't envision it going the way it did. I think the OG grading rubric we had was like, texture.
Yeah.
Does it have
5 points
white
for texture?
Yeah, 5 points for white cast. And then, and as we started using these sunscreen, we're like, well, I'm going to take a point off because it smells bad. Or I'm going to add a point because it has a surprising characteristic. So we learn a lot about us even doing this test.
Totally.
So we're going to jump into our thoughts on some of these different categories. Yeah. And to start, we have to start with sunscreens that use just US chemical filters.
Yeah, and this is probably our largest category of products we tested. The reason being because the sunscreener really only shows chemical filters really well. Some of these minerals and hybrids, because the minerals are going to be reflecting some of that UV light, it just doesn't quite show up as well. And it's really hard to know, like, how does it wear? How does it wash off? So this is our biggest category by far.
And I will have to add that if you're looking at some of these reels we put together, and if it's a video on me, look for my freckles on the mineral videos, because that's
same. I've got pigmentation too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only way I can see where the mineral has gone.
It's quite hard. So for this category, I think one of the biggest takeaways for Gloria and I was that the orifice size of the spout.
Oh, so thank you for specifying.
I know. I knew because Gloria was like, orifice. Yeah. It definitely matters in how much you apply. After we did the whole series about the 2-finger method, the teaspoon, and how maybe 3 fingers is better, we try to stick to 3 fingers. However, there are definitely a couple of these where I'm like, that was not necessary at all. That's horrific.
1.5 fingers too many.
So one of those would be the Kroger Supergoop knockoff tube.
So that one has, like, I would think the perfect orifice size, because when we were doing the weight test in episode 6, if you want to refer back to that episode, it dispenses a pretty decent amount, even with just 2 fingers. It gets you it gets you about how much you need for your face with just 2 fingers. But it feels bad, man. It feels real bad.
This is one of those classic old school silicone textures that it just makes you feel so greasy, and it never absorbs. And I just feel like that if you ever want to know what a bad silicone texture feels like, that is a great example of it.
So I tested that. I put that one through one of my boxing class tests because it was also rated for water resistancy. So I kind of want to see how it does in a more sporty, more sweaty setting. It held up okay. Like, it didn't really bug my eyes that much, and my eyes tend to be very sensitive to sunscreen runnings. But it feels bad before the class. It feels bad after the class. It was just a greasy mess.
Feels bad, man.
Yeah, very man.
I think another worse one we probably have to call out is the Aveeno.
You will see this reel of me having a mental and physical meltdown because of this sunscreen.
If you wondered why Gloria was crying in 2 of our podcast episodes, it's because she was wearing the Aveeno SPF 50.
So I'll be 100% honest. When I'm doing these tests, I am trying to be cognizant of applying enough. But we tested so many different formulas, and there's a couple that really scarred me. So like, I know I'm supposed to glaze the crap out of my fingers, but I'm like, oh no, the line looking a little thin. Whatever. So this formula was so runny.
It's kind of funky too, because when you put it on your fingers, it's actually got a little bit of thickness to it. But as soon as you spread it, it just runs like a bubble. Yeah.
And I will say, on initial contact on face, you might actually think that this is a good one. Like, oh yeah, it's like a gel cream. It's very refreshing. And then it just stays wet forever. It doesn't dry. And then it slowly drips down to your eye as the day goes on.
Yep.
And when we got a lot of very not kind comments on TikTok, that's like, yeah, okay, why don't you just wear less? Duh. To these people, I'm trying to apply the regulated amount of sunscreen. If that texture would have been okay on my skin, if I apply maybe like a drop.
This is exactly why we tell people it's like you want to find a texture that you're willing to apply heavy. If you fall into this category of thought where you're like, just apply less, you found the wrong sunscreen. So anyways, I feel like when I read those comments, I was like, we have not done a good job of educating.
Yes. When it comes to sunscreen, more is more, and you're probably already under applying a little bit.
Yeah. But let's talk about some good ones. We should say there are a couple new ones we got to try. Naturium's SPF 50, Crave Beauty's SPF 40. I will say the Naturium one, my family really liked. It's SPF 50, high protection, but the texture wasn't overly greasy. So I would say, yeah, honestly, with some of these new sunscreens, the textures are not bad.
Yeah, I wanted to call out the Eucerin one as a surprise drugstore win.
Yeah.
It's not, I wouldn't say it's the most elegant sunscreen ever. If you buy it, like, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, it's a beautiful formula. But at the same time, like, for the price point, it does. I think of all the drugstore sunscreens we tried in this test, this one did by far the best.
No, that's a really good point.
Classic lotion with a reasonable dry down time, and it's not super heavy, nor is it like super dry. So it's just like a pretty like run of the mill standard does a job workhorse of the formula.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I do feel like sunscreen pricing is moving north. And I think it's harder to find like more affordable sunscreen nowadays. Yeah. The other one I should mention that surprised us was La Roche-Posay's SPF 70. This is kind of that classic, it's got a bit of a thin moisturizer texture despite the higher SPF 70, which, to be honest, we should clarify, we don't really care about. If you find an SPF 50, that's great. There's no need to push for the higher SPF value here.
Yeah.
But I think that one was surprisingly pretty clean. Yeah, for a higher SPF. At L'Oreal, we tried some high SPFs, and even when we were doing some competitor analysis, we looked at them, and some of them can get pretty gross. Yeah.
So very pleasantly surprised by that one. And another whole brand we want to give shout out to is the Vacation line. They're pretty good. I was fully expecting the whipped cream texture to be full gimmick. But it actually, first of all, in the weight test, that nozzle, the way it dispenses a really good weight of sunscreen. So you're getting proper coverage based on the usage amount. For the amount of fluff that you put on your face, at the beginning you look a little silly because it's like you just got pied in the face. But it actually like dries down pretty quickly. It doesn't have a really long play time. And the finish is not overly shiny or overly heavy. It is a little bit on the nourishing side. If you have oily skin, you might not like it as much as I did. I will say the only downfall there is its positioning as a water-resistant sunscreen. But I found that, and we should say that this is such a good product to talk about because I had issues with it. I took it to a boxing class. I had issues with it kind of running my eye just a little bit, not too badly, but it still got patchy and runny with sweat. Water resistance and sweat resistance are really two like kind of off concepts. In the US, you're not supposed to claim sweat resistance, so a lot of times people just reach for that water resistant sunscreen. But their performance with sweat can vary far and wide in between.
Yeah, but totally agree. I think the whole line is actually pretty solid. The SPF 50 lotion, another one that's pretty clean, not too greasy. Yeah, so I would say overall pretty good. I actually should ask Gloria, do you want to run through which of the ones that you had issues like running into your eyes? Gloria happens to be more sensitive with that than me.
Yeah. As you will see in our podcast episode 9 with my really red eyes, and I think it was episode 8, I was like just winking at Victoria the whole time. I was like, I can't do this. I had the vacation whip. I had a little bit of issue with it running my eye, and this is with sweat. If I use it without going out and running around, it's really honestly not bad at all, and it holds. Huge issues with the Aveeno one. That one, without me doing anything, I was just literally sitting down recording a podcast. It just slowly migrated to my eye area, and it's a little irritating to my eye area. All the Asian ones did really well with the migration test. Oh, okay. Even ones without specifying sweat resistant, I have no issue with it running into my eye.
Got it. You know what's funny for me is I don't get irritation, but I do wear contacts. So I do have moments where suddenly my vision will go foggy,
sudden blindness.
Cloudy. Yeah, I'm like oh crap, it's happening. And so I think I tend to have that with very fluid formula. So the LRP, La Roche-Posay fluid SPF 60, that one, sometimes I will have that issue. And then I did want to mention, because we definitely read all of our community commentary on all of our videos and their feedback. Naturium was a really funky one that there were a few of them that did say that they try not to apply too close to the eye area. I just wanted to share that. I did not experience that. I don't think Gloria did either.
I didn't, but nor did I do anything super strenuous when I tried it out. I wore like a daily SPF. Yeah. And this is something else that we should call out too, is these tests, we do try to just replicate how we put it through different environments, but it's impossible for Victoria to go snorkel 18 times with every single one of the water resistant sunscreen.
Gloria is not going to pay for Victoria's vacation to test this.
Nor am I going to 18 different boxing classes with everything. So the conditions at which we test these are a little different. We do try to match, like, say, if it's more positioned to be a sports sunscreen, we'll take it to a sporting event. And if it doesn't have those claims, we'll wear it in the office as a daily sunscreen kind of test. Totally. So the Naturium, I didn't put it through a torture test. I just sat in the office with it.
We should also mention Evie. Shout out to the Evie team. They sent us a lovely package. It is not a US brand, so unfortunately you can't purchase it, but for our non-US listeners, we know it's definitely a cult favorite. Yeah, Gloria did a really fun humidity test, and I thought that was great.
Actually, that's one of my biggest learnings, because during this test I had a chance to go back to Taiwan, which is a swampland, and it does not hold up to its humidity. It's sunscreen killer. The EV one, I will say they do have their water resistance range. So sadly, I didn't bring that one with me to humidity to see how it does. But what I took is their daily wear SPF. And that one did not hold up in humidity at all. It got really patchy without me really doing anything. But then when I tested back here in LA, I put it through the exact same test. In Taiwan, I took it to a cafe, did some work, came back, it was shockingly patchy. And then I did the same test in the US, where in LA, where it's much drier. Also did a lot of dust work, and it held up insanely well. So the environment that you're in kind of matters.
Totally. We should move on to a few of the minerals we tried.
Difficult category.
Yeah, I gotta say, obviously because we didn't have many, there was going to be 4. Actually, no, there's 3. And only 2 actually ended up making it that were pure mineral. There are a lot more hybrids nowadays. But one of them we had to completely axe. It's the Think Sport SPF 50. That one you can find at Target. We had to axe because it failed stability when we got it.
Well, that's awkward.
And what we mean by that is I can show you the video here of me squeezing out the tube. And then you'll just see like a gush of water come out. And then the white lotion.
I feel like we should do a montage of if your sunscreen looks like this, it is time to throw it out.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we're not going to test that one. And if you ever see that happen to your own sunscreen, you got to move on. We tested the Cetaphil mineral face sunscreen.
So sorry, Victoria.
SPF 50. It's not great. It's really not great. It's a thin fluid. Honestly, it's not even a texture issue. There's definitely a white cast. And just like Gloria was saying, is once you start doing sweat, any sort of high performance activity, it doesn't really hold up very well.
Even though its position is
water resistance, 80 minutes, yes. And had an issue where it started running into like some of my family's eyes. Yeah, so I would say, unfortunately, this is not my favorite mineral.
I will be honest. My confession here is I did my best to punt every single mineral towards Victoria.
Oh, white cast. That's fair.
Yeah.
And also, I went to Hawaii. So, I mean, I was trying to be mindful of their guidance. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for me, I have dry skin and I struggle a lot with mineral formulas because minerals, like, because it's like a suspension of a powder, they tend to feel really drying on me. The only one I really, really tested was the Meatz City Defense line. It's the one in a dropper. I was fully expecting it to be atrocious. I will say, I think Meatz onto something. I think their City Defense line, their minerals tend to be really good. Their texture is pretty pleasant.
Yeah.
This one, the big downfall here is that it's very shiny. It's pretty shiny. Not in a way that's like I don't find it to be very offensive. Like I would go out with it, but I think that's not the look that everyone's targeting. But it wears pretty decently, and it surprisingly didn't make me feel dry over time.
I agree with you. I think Meatz City Defense line is pretty good. I do love their mineral sunscreen for face. It's just so expensive. I have to say, I still hate the dropper packaging.
Yeah.
I can't get over that because I just feel like it's already so cumbersome. And can you imagine bringing a dropper to wherever you're going to like reapply? It's just this whole spiel you have to do. And you can't even, you have to have a surface to put the dropper on. So I feel like I'm just like a dropper hater.
I don't think you're off base here.
So those are the only 3 we tried, and that's not to say we won't be trying more. It's just outside of this challenge, so more to come. We definitely need a moment to talk about Tinted.
Sorry, this is another category I punted towards Victoria very hard.
Wow, guys, this is wild. Talk about a really wild category. I realized that definitely next year would like to focus even more on this group just because textures all over the place, the coverage is all over the place, and I will say the worst one that I had to make Gloria try because I felt like this was a product that people loved, but I just wasn't getting it. And then I needed Gloria to confirm this, was the Australian Gold.
Yeah, so I will say why I think people might like this is they're probably under applying like crazy. It has that classic powdery spread, but when you apply it like a sunscreen, so at least the 2 very glazed finger rule to 3 finger rule, when I applied it, first of all, the playtime is really long. Secondly, the coverage I am getting from that amount of sunscreen was not flattering.
It's a lot. It's a lot of pigment. And I gotta be honest, I was talking to Gloria about this, is that I feel like the formula has changed because I don't remember the formula being like this when we tested it out 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. You don't want to put a lot on because if you put the foundation amount, it actually works really well. There gets to be a certain point where once you pass the threshold, it stops absorbing.
Yeah.
And then it just sits on your face. And I felt like almost like this caking happened where I almost felt like a little bit of dryness. I was like, am I experiencing dryness right now?
Can confirm.
Yeah.
It was freaking dry.
Yeah.
And exactly as Victoria said, because I gave up letting it absorb. It kind of slid around. I was like, whatever. And as I was sitting there, I can feel it starting to like tighten.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like I'm watching it, feeling a cake in real time.
Yes, exactly. So I was so surprised by that because I know it's a favorite. So I don't know. But anyways, so I would say that's worst. I think probably the better ones, I think K-Skin to me, their newest, they're a new brand that just launched. Their Tinted is a chemical. And I feel like that texture actually, it does really well. And the general coverage is more my style where it's a little more on the mild coverage, I would say, mild to medium. And absorbed well and felt like it didn't offset my skin tone in a weird way. So I think those are probably the two that I would want to put in the spotlight. And then we also did a study where we wanted to test what would happen if you applied a foundation like a sunscreen. So I decided to use the MAC SPF 30 fluid, and I did actually try reapplying it as well. And I'll be honest, it is not the most offensive thing. So applying it 3-finger rule once, I felt like it's fine. It's heavier coverage, but I didn't think like it was like so atrocious and just kind of outlandish to walk in with that much foundation. But the reapplication wasn't great. And so I think this general category I was telling Gloria is like, if you use a tinted, I think you should have makeup wipes with you.
Yeah, it just seems like a little bit of a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to be very conscientious of like, okay, I might need a routine just to reapply, especially if you're outdoors a lot and you need to do it more frequently. It's just, a little.
So definitely makeup wipe. Be careful of your laundry. I ruined a couple sweaters, and I highly recommend double cleansing. You'll see in some of the videos where I actually use a white towel to dry off so you can just see
the tragedy.
I don't ever think I had one where I felt like I removed all of the pigment, even after a double cleanse. So this is where just be really mindful of that. But yeah, I don't know. I do really like this category. I think they're improving. So I'm not saying you should give up on it. I'm just saying that it takes a little tweaking compared to the other ones.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. We're going to take a little break.
Woo!
We still have a whole nother chunk with international filters, Japanese and Korean sunscreens to go through. So, but for now, let's break it up. All right, it's Animal Fun Fact Corner. I think the YouTube algorithm is onto me. Every time we do Animal Fun Fact Corner research, they start recommending these different stations to me or these different channels. And my latest one is a channel called EV Nautilus. And this is a 78-meter research vessel owned by the Ocean Exploration Trust under the direction of Robert Ballard. I'm sorry if I said that wrong.
Yeah.
Researchers are known for finding the wreck of Titanic and German battleship Bismarck. The vessel's home port is the Alta Sea facility in San Pedro and the port of Los Angeles. So
right here.
Right here. And what I love about this channel is this is a ship that's dedicated to ocean research and whatnot. And they do a lot of work where a lot of times they do live streams of their exploration, their dives. And,
that's awesome.
And sometimes they have, when they find unique animals, they'll upload their the clips.
Okay.
What I love about this channel is you hear the raw footage of the scientists as they like talk through what they find.
Okay.
And it's almost like, it's adorable because you'll hear stuff like, my God, what is that? That's amazing. Holy crap, that looks like a Muppet. So it's almost like, oh, these are like serious scientists doing great work in their field, but they talk like, you know,
Very
like
casual.
very casual. It's
Yeah.
almost like a childlike wonder at everything you discover in the
Yeah.
ocean. So from their videos, that brought me to the stubby squid.
I love it already.
Rosea pacifica. These are adorably tiny little squids. They're found along, basically all along the Bering Strait. So along the coast of California, up to Australia, Alaska, and then down to Japan.
Okay.
They're teeny tiny. Their body is just about 2 inches. So body plus tentacles is about 5 inches. That's what
7 inches, 5.
Yeah, about 5 inches. Yeah, so they're teeny tiny. They're really, really cute. They are able to survive highly polluted water. That's why you'll even find them off of the coast of Los Angeles and other urban areas. They're also very hardy. They are very easy to keep in the aquarium as long as the water is cold enough. Seattle Aquarium has a year-round exhibit with these adorable little squids. I just want to give that a shout out because they're very hardy. They can survive harsh environments. Let's not get any ideas, skincare brands. I'm sure if this is a kelp, someone is already harvesting it for anti-pollution ingredients.
No, leave the stubby squid alone.
Yeah.
You fiends.
What's really adorable is that they have little fins. And when they swim, it's like little fluttery wings that goes through the water. Most of the day, they hide in the sand, exposing just their eyes. They have like a little mucus membrane that they produce that catches the sand, so it's like a mucus sand jacket that helps them camouflage.
Oh, yeah.
The
Is that what the
that other thingy that you found,
which one?
was it the crab that carries stuff?
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
and there was a fish that also sleeps in mucus.
Oh, yeah.
But we've done a lot.
Oh, it's come full circle.
Yeah, they live about 2 years. Their full life cycle is they reproduce. They're born as little mini versions of them, get to maturity, they reproduce, and then they die shortly after reproduction. But the real reason why I brought this up is from the EV Nautilus channel, they found one of these little creatures in the middle of the ocean. And it looks so fake. It's just this adorable little squid with this expression that's like, I have seen some shit. And then per the researchers' words, they're like, oh my God, it looks like a child dropped his toy. And that's literally what they look like. They have these wide eyes, these googly eyes, and just like, oh, it's a submarine.
It almost doesn't look real.
Yeah.
It's like a Muppet version of a stubby squid.
Yeah, it looks super fake. And I learned from me doing some research on this animal. It's like, part of the reason is because they are kind of like deer. When you shine a light on it, it gets shell shocked. So then it just like goes...
Oh no.
So it's super duper adorable. I'll put the link up here. You guys should
That's
check out the
awesome.
channel too, because they have I spend hours just on the channel like because their commentary on these like sea creatures they found is super cute, very wholesome.
There's a few really good like aquarium channels that they just show the live feed of their like jellyfish tank or like their big aquarium. I'm like, yeah, just having that on the background is nice.
Very zen.
Yeah.
I really like those channels. One of my favorite ones are like the Otter Watch. Sometimes the jellyfish ones is very zen.
Yeah.
The one that I grew out of is the red panda.
Oh.
They're adorable. They don't do shit. They don't do jack doodly squat.
I did like, I forget which aquarium did this, but they had videos where they would pair their feed with like a playlist. So sometimes you'll get like jazz with like jellyfish, or you'll get fish, but then it's like EDM music. You're like, whoa, this is cool.
That's so cute.
Yeah. So, oh yay,
the stubby squid.
All right, you'll be okay, buddy.
It's okay.
It's gonna be okay.
It was so funny in the video. You can see it like stare at the researchers, and one of the research comments like, oh, it's veiny, and you can see like the texture on the pod. It almost looks like it's like, what is that? Oh my god. Super
It's
duper
mind
cute.
being blown. Okay. Awesome. Great. All right.
That's a Stubby Squid.
It's time to get back into the meat.
All right. We have to talk about the Asian formulas. And we'll start with the Asian chemical formulas. And this is probably a lot of people's favorites.
For sure. Where to start?
Do we want to start with the good ones or the not so good ones?
Not so good ones.
All right, let's start with the bad ones. Okay, I was just talking to Victoria about this. I kind of love the way Biore does their sunscreen lines. There are so many, and all the names are freaking confusing. It's like Biore sunscreen milk, Biore sunscreen
Gel.
lotion,
Yeah.
Biore sun milk. I never know what is what based on the
And they're all
names.
so long. And I was
Yes.
telling Gloria, like, what is it about Allie's skincare or sunscreen where they basically sound like car series? So
The
like
EX.
the EX versus the LX versus, and I'm pretty sure that's how Honda names their Civics. So
Actually.
yeah, so the naming for sunscreens is that's probably the most painful part of doing this challenge is typing out the 8 words that come after the brand.
Yep.
Yeah.
But where Biore is onto something is all their bottles look very, very different. So I can just say, oh yeah, the long bottle, the bullet bottle versus the whatever bottle. So onto something there.
Yes.
The worst, we tried a bunch of different products from this line because it's a classic and they're known for making really great sunscreen.
Yeah.
Gonna have to poo-poo on the spray.
I gotta be honest, I was shocked by the way that it dried on film. And because it's very obvious that it dried almost too quickly, where you couldn't even get the film to rub evenly. It had already dried onto your face.
Yeah, it's almost like where you can see exactly where your fingers are. And I also tested spray directly on face and then rubbing it. And even after rubbing, you can almost still see where like the specks are because it dries that fast.
Yeah.
And it was virtually impossible. And I will say, like, if we didn't do the UV sunscreener test, I'll be like, well, I guess for a spray, it's like, okay, it feels like pretty good texture. But just visually, it just looks really streaky.
Yep, totally agree. Like we said, as a reminder, if you are using sprays, just the standard operating procedures, you actually spray on your hand, then rub in. And also over apply.
Yeah.
There's multiple videos of us doing sprays, and you'll see what you think is a lot does not cover. It's probably only half of what you think you should apply.
Yeah.
So always apply more with these guys.
And side comment is this formula also has a decent load of alcohol. It's not even an aerosol bottle, it's just alcohol. So that means when I close my eyes and spritz on my eyes, I'm like,
No, not the eyeballs. Okay, yes, I agree with that. I think some of the ones that did, honestly, this category did pretty well.
Pretty
overall.
decent all around.
The Nivea one is fine. It's great. The UV cut. Obviously, I think it's comparable to the Biore Aqua Rich that we always tout.
Yep.
And it's just because they get a different set of filters to work with, so they are able to create these more like gel watery textures where the break is a lot more fresh, and then it just doesn't dry as heavy as the US filters. So yeah.
I will say Victoria and I, even though I have dry skin, Victoria has oily skin. A lot of these tests, we realize that our tasting sunscreen converge somewhere in the middle. It's like it's kind of similar. We do pay attention to different aspects of it because of our skin type, but it's reasonably similar. But the one where our opinions pretty split is the Beauty of Jungsen one.
Yeah.
That one applies pretty nicely. It's a good formula. But interestingly on me, it starts to get really drying as I wear it. And I don't know what's in it that's causing that.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, for me, I thought it was perfectly fine. It's another good texture. I don't feel overly greasy. I'm actually wearing it right now to make sure. But yeah, I actually think it's another like great texture. Very reminiscent of the pharmacy sunscreen that we had before. But yeah, also found it surprising. We also really liked the Neogen one.
That one was a surprise win for me. Not that I didn't think it was going to be good, but I was expecting something that's very similar to the Nivea or the classic Biore. But to me, what's really winning about this is how fast the film sets. It does give you enough playtime to rub in a very even layer, but it sets really fast into a very clean finish.
Yeah.
So fast that sometimes, like, where I find people tend to under apply is kind of like the Vino video or some of the other formulas we tested that have longer playtime. You tend not to want to apply so much that, like, you're like
just sitting there for too long rubbing it in.
like a whole minute and a half rubbing it in. And Victoria and I, when we were doing the test, most sunscreen tend to take about a good, I would say maybe 50 seconds to rub in. And if it's longer than that, if it gets to like the minute 30, it feels really excessive. This one, I kid you not, sets in like 30 seconds or less. It's really pleasant.
I wouldn't say it has like a fresh break. It's just a very light lotion.
Yeah.
So the texture, it's just, honestly, it's really nice. So I would say, that's another win. So that's chemicals. And then we also did a couple that were Asia hybrids. And this is definitely a realm that I do feel like is gaining some traction in Asia.
Yeah, I think Asia is starting to catch on to the reef safe claims a little bit. And their take is to just take Asian filters and sometimes combine it with a zinc or titanium dioxide. So a lot of classic Asian formulas are actually hybrids. One of the like OG sunscreen formulas that came from Asia is the Shiseido Anessa sunscreen. That's the one, the gold bottle. I feel like I've seen ads on that sunscreen since I was in like middle school or something.
Very old school, for sure.
It's touted as the high performance sunscreen. The Anessa used to do a lot of commercials of some hot model popping out of a swimming pool or playing sand volleyball. So it's definitely one that's touted to be everything resistant. Sweat, humidity, whatever, all of that. I took this. I was so impressed with how well it held up. I will say one really positive thing and one kind of negative thing about this formula. The really impressive thing is it is in really good, really high performing and really does hold up super well to sweat resistance. I sweat like crazy doing well in these classes, and afterwards you can see a lot of sunscreen after I work out. On the UV sunscreener, you can no longer tell where I apply, where I didn't apply. So usually on the when I apply, you see this little ring here where I leave around my eyes. And even after the workout, the Anessa, you can see exactly where that ring is. Where it fades is kind of where I've been rubbing or wiping off sweat, like around my cheeks. But it's still there. There's still coverage. You're just getting less of it by rubbing off. But in terms of performance, I was like, very impressed. And a lot of times, even the water resistant sunscreen, I worry about running into eyes. No issues whatsoever. None of it got into my eyes. As I was washing it off, actually, when I was washing off, obviously that gets in my eye a little bit, and I felt the sting a little bit. So I know that if it runs in my eye, it would have irritated them.
What's funny is I actually had issues with Anessa running into my eye.
That is so weird.
So I think it's like because again, I think I struggle when it gets super fluid, and if I'm not careful, is if I get too close, it's not that it caused any stinging or irritation. It's just that I have that blindness that happens in my contact lens. So Anessa happened to be one of them, and I'm pretty sure I haven't been able to test the athleism yet, but I'm pretty sure I would have the same issue there, and I will follow up with that finding.
Actually, I think that is the other takeaway too. The main downside to the Anessa formula is the playtime is on the long side. So like Victoria's mentioning, like that fluid, glidey texture, it is more likely that you will get in your eye unintentionally.
With the silicone fluids.
Yep.
But I should also mention, I think Anessa does the mineral hybrid best. I still had a little bit of a white cast with the Alley UV gel, and so I would think that it actually does pretty well.
That's a pretty good point. And I think an Alley does taste a little bit of that classic Asian approach, where it's a little bit white on purpose. I'm pretty pale. And
Yep,
on me, I
that's totally
can
fair.
see that it's not a cast per se, but it's just a white tint on me.
Yeah,
It's a little
totally.
weird.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agree. So I think that is a quick run through of all of the sunscreens we tried.
Mhm.
But we definitely wanted to dedicate like the last 10 minutes of this to just our general
Learnings,
findings going through this whole journey, because I definitely learned a few things or two, and especially because I thought I am an avid sunscreen user, and yet I'm still learning.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing I will say is I have to talk about using, especially because I'm oily skin,
Mm-mm.
using sunscreen every day with reapplication. I do feel like there is a little bit of skin congestion over time. And it's totally not always on the sunscreen. It's also my cleansing habits. I feel like I needed to be a lot more aware of how diligent I am about cleaning. And that was learning for me.
Yeah. And Victoria's absolutely right. Like doing this, the downside of testing so many formulas in such a short period of time is it's hard for us to pinpoint what might be causing the issue. So even for me, I have dry skin. I rarely ever get any pimples. So I found through the sunscreeners that I don't cling very well towards my my hairline.
Yes.
And throughout this test, I got a couple pimples around my hairline.
Yeah.
I don't know which one's causing it, to be honest, because like there's some good ones and not so good ones. And yeah, cleansing habit definitely pops up in a not so great way here.
Yeah. So I don't know for those. I know there's a cohort, a very large cohort of us that are very afraid of putting on sunscreen when you're breaking out.
Mm-hmm.
It's still the thing to do, and you can always just combat that with a really good cleansing routine. So like I said, highly recommend double cleansing. If you need to reapply, I would say have those makeup wipes on you. All of that. I would have liked to do that next time if I did this again.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And I think with double cleansing, I find most sunscreens wash off well with just a blank slate. Yeah. I learned so much about myself and where I tend to miss spots.
Oh my gosh. Okay, go through it. Where?
This dot on my chin.
The Jafar zone.
The Jafar zone. Like right here, literally right here, right under my chin, like where a cleft chin would be. There's so many times I go staring at myself in the UV camera. I was like, boop. There's literally a dot of sunscreen here. Obviously, sometimes we do these tests in the middle of the day. And I do avoid the eye area on purpose if I have makeup on. But I don't avoid my hairline on purpose. Yeah. I still miss a lot of all along here.
Totally. So for me, it's eye area. Yeah. I think there's like 3 or 4 videos where in the sunscreen it looks like I have like leftover eyeliner from yesteryear. Yeah. And so there's that. And then the other thing is this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we're both really funny. The sideburn. Yeah.
Terrible. Yeah. I'm apparently terrible at washing this area off.
I think the funniest one I saw was like it almost looked like Victoria took a marker and just drew around her face.
Yeah, so that's pretty bad. And I think one thing that I this is going off tangent, but one thing that people commented on while we did this was how many times did people were like, "What about your ears?" And I'm like, "Yes, I forgot."
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget your ears.
Better coaches than we are players. What can I say? Yes. Yeah. Yes, guys, kids, hear it from us. Don't forget your ears.
Yeah, so yes, cleansing. I learned a lot weirdly about cleansing, even more than sunscreen, so I feel like.
Yeah. Oh, and this is where like I think last episode we talked about our cleansing habits a little bit, and I mentioned that my bad habit is sometimes I substitute cleansing time with aggression. Yeah. To thoroughly clean, just definitely lather a little bit longer than you normally would to give that deep clean. I will say sometimes I tend to miss spots more if I'm in a hurry. For sure. I'm just like, oh yeah, well, that's probably good enough.
Yep, totally. I think another thing we have to talk about is just general face touching. Or like any sort of rubbing or like when Gloria goes to these classes and she's sweating, she probably like wipes a certain area. And I feel like I've noticed it does not, a lot of these just do not hold up to that at all.
Yeah. So rubbing mechanical actions is so important to how your sunscreen wears. I will say, well, first of all, I was going through a bout of terrible allergies. So a lot of times I'm blowing my nose, so I can't help that. And it definitely just rubs off the sunscreen around my nose.
Yeah.
And then I find myself, I definitely am someone to prop up my cheek and my chin when I think or when I work. Or
as Gloria does this.
Yes. And the worst is sometimes I think by literally squeezing my cheek and then sitting on this, and you will see where I rub sunscreen off right along my cheeks.
Yes, totally. Yep. And like toweling. So one thing that happened a lot was like you go swimming, snorkeling, or whatever, and then you would like towel off, and then you're like, crap. Yeah. I think it just wiped all of it off.
Yep.
There's one thing that we learned was, and it's actually a video of my sister where she shows her, she takes off her snorkel mask, and you can see that all of the sunscreen in the snorkel mask is intact, but then everything around it is gone. So it's like that. I mean, if anything, that just shows you like when you are rubbing and you're just touching your face, all of that can compromise the film.
There's actually,
just don't think about it that often.
Yeah. There's another video that I did, the one on the Biore Athleism line. Yeah. That one, I took it outside on a jog, and then when I came back, you can see in the camera, it was disgusting. It was just like sweat beads everywhere. But the film, that one's another very impressive performance one. The film is all there. It's basically, it's really good. And I took a towel to just pat, but I still dragged it a little bit just to wipe off the sweat. And instantly, it took off like a huge chunk of it. And yeah, that mechanical action matters. And a lot of times when I go to like say a boxing class or something, if I get too sweaty, I'm like wiping sweat off with my sleeve.
Yeah,
pretty bad.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good segue for us to explain that, you know, a lot of people rely on water resistance for sweating activities. And it doesn't always hold up, and that's kind of the challenge with sunscreens and sunscreen claims that I feel like is not helpful.
Yep. So reapply often.
Exactly. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, any other learnings, Gloria?
I think one of the most interesting things I learned is the humidity.
Yeah.
And how bad it is for sunscreen.
Yeah.
I took 2 formulas on this humidity versus less humidity test. One is the Biore Fluid, that's the one in the bullet shaped case, and then one is the Eevee sunscreen. I already talked about Eevee a little bit. The Biore one was also a surprise for me. That one is one of my favorite just texture wise.
Yeah.
And it's formulated in Asia. Boy, it just died in humidity. It just, the way it lifts the film or something, and then that combined with, when I was there, I still had to wear a face mask.
Totally.
Just that little extra rubbing, it just off. But that's another formula that if you're just on a regular day-to-day, in an environment that's less humid, holds up beautifully. So, yeah, very surprising.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I think Gloria and I, the way we rated these, we should say that, you know, we kind of generally see anything from like a 6 and higher to be a pretty decent sunscreen. It's worth a shot. And then a lot of these Asia ones do end up falling in the like 8, even 9 category, I feel like. US, a good one is like 6, 7, sometimes 8. So I do feel like next year we would probably change up the grading just a little bit. We actually don't even like truly to grade because we know at the end of the day it is a little bit of a personal anecdote, right? So, but we hope it was helpful. And hopefully the visuals are a good reminder of how to just apply sunscreen correctly and to actually use sunscreen.
Any favorites?
Overall? Okay, any favorites? I think Gloria's right. I think that Neogen was a pretty solid surprise. I actually like Beauty of Joseon. I know Gloria doesn't like it. And then I think the Nivea one, I know they're all Asians, terrible, but that one, just because I think price-wise it's not that bad, and it's still solid texture for me.
So for me,
it's hard. They're all, I don't know. I just feel like it's
they're
different.
pros and cons.
Yeah.
There's no perfect sunscreen.
Yeah.
For me, texture alone, I still like the Biore Fluid by far the best.
The Athleism one.
No, not the Athleism one. The one in the bullet case. But just like based on like how my experience looking at a sunscreener and seeing how fast it sets and how it can apply a little streaky, I'm like, ooh. But it still feels like a really good one for me for daily wear. The Beauty of Joseon one was a very pleasant surprise. I really like that one.
And Neogen.
Oh, sorry. The Neogen one is a very pleasant surprise. I think of all the sweat because I took a lot of it on runs and stuff.
Yeah.
Between the Nessa and the Athleism, I'm impressed by both their performance. Texture-wise, I would put Athleism a little higher, just because the Nessa one has that, it's
Silicone.
A little powdery. Yeah. And over time, it feels a little drying on me.
For sure.
But the Biore wasn't drying on me. So, and then for me, like, another takeaway here is, like, I learned a lot about criteria of sunscreen that I didn't really think about super consciously. I think it was really fun to test so many products back to back, because you really start thinking about what qualities you really care about. Mm-hmm. We always say texture is king. It's what works for you, what will get you to apply a lot of sunscreen, apply it liberally.
Yeah.
I think for me, the surprise about what I look for in a sunscreen is I used to think I'm someone that likes the glidey formulas a little bit.
Okay. Do you have a texture in mind? That's glidey.
Wow, you caught me off guard.
Sorry. I just want to know what glidey means.
Yeah, well, actually, I should rephrase that. I didn't think I was someone that's that picky about sunscreen. I know something that I'm really cognizant of is drying, because some formulas, especially minerals always drying on me over time. Yep. And there's some chemicals that's a little alcohol-y that can feel really drying over time. So that's something I'm always looking for. But for me, going through all of these, I was surprised by, like, oh, wow, some, like, even though I have dry skin, some look really shiny on me. Yeah. Or playtime is something that I wasn't super picky about before this test, but, like, just testing a range of different, like, amounts of rub-in time, like, this really matters. And the last thing that I pay a lot of attention to is, like, how your hand feels after application.
Yes.
Yeah.
How much of it is still on your hand?
Yeah. This is something I found that, I mean, I always kind of knew that's something to think about, but comparing all the different formulas, how it feels on hand after, that's something I care about a surprising amount, because there's some that's just like, it makes your hand feel glidey or powdery or just kind of gross. You know?
I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I felt like with Tinteds, I wish I had applied with like a brush or something, because just the amount of pigment on hand is gross. So that's a really good point. And I just wanted to add like a couple more, because I feel like we always tout the Asian ones, but if you're in the US and you're trying to just buy based on like US chemical filters or what's around you, I think the vacation ones are a great place to start. La Roche-Posay is still solid, honestly. Yeah. They have such a range of sunscreens with textures that all, for the most part, dry pretty well. So I think that those are the two brands we would point you towards. And then a big surprise was the Eucerin SPF. So yeah, anyways, that's it.
Hope that's helpful.
Yeah, it was kind of fun.
It was really fun, yeah. And I know there's still a lot of other ones, so we could test. Maybe there'll be round two. More to come. And we'll probably think about refining the skill a little bit. Still know that our numbers are a little subjective, but you know, hopefully this was helpful.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so I think that wraps it up for the Meatz.
Yes.
Where can they find us, Gloria?
You can find us on our website at chemistconfessions.com. You can email us at info@chemistconfessions.com. You can also DM us on Instagram at chemist.confession. Don't forget Chemist coin for your $5 off coupon. And that's it.
Yeah. Otherwise, we will see you next time. Take care, guys.
Bye.